Hi, it's Dr. Betsy Greenleaf here with another episode of the Body, Mind, Spirit Show. I'm very excited to have with us today Dr. Jerry Bailey. Dr. Jerry Bailey has, I think, more letters after his name than I do, between chiropractor, acupuncturist, and I kind of lost track after that. There's just way too many. And on top of it all, he is the host of The Guy Show. Thank you, Dr. Jerry Bailey, for being with us here today.
Hey, I am so stoked to be here. Thank you for having me. And I know I don't have quite as many initials as you do, but I'm working on
I know.
it. I like to have more initials than I actually have name.
I know my business card is starting to get a little bit too short. I'm starting to run out of room.
Yeah, it's like, phones got really small. So like cards, and so now phones are getting big again. And basically we're going to have a business card the size of an iPad to hand somebody like, here is my card.
So, I wanted to talk to you because you specialize in men's health. And I don't know, I mean, obviously you're a man, but I don't know, and I don't want to make too many generalizations, but I'm going to make a generalization about my husband. Like trying to get him to go to the doctor is like next to impossible. If
Mm-hmm.
he's not dying or like in extreme agony or pain, he's like, I'm fine. Why go? So, do you see that in your practice at all?
Yeah, that's the biggest conundrum with men is unless something is painful or anything else, we don't go in. And then I'll reverse that generalization for women. And again, this is a total
Yes.
generalization. Let me preface that this is not how I think at all. Is the slightest little something with women, they go in.
Yeah.
But that's just that reverse there. But yeah, men tend to not go in because we think, and we've been taught that, suck it up, don't cry, you're fine, this whole process. But men have a lot more of that silent killer that happens in us. We're seeing it more in women too, but we have the silent killer, the hypertension, the glucose levels, the cholesterol issues, all those things that create such that our biggest deaths, our biggest number of deaths in the country are from those cardiovascular diseases. And it's still because it's silent, because we don't know better. We don't know to go in, or the docs don't really take it seriously until we see the numbers skyrocket. And then, oh, now here's the med, in that process. So the biggest thing is, what I work with guys and I do, I do my talks and everything else is get checked and get checked early, not just with the basic stuff that your primary care or sometimes even the specialist might do, but really go deep into your health. Look at those genetic markers, look at the functional medicine testing to go, what does my organic acids test look like, which is how your body's actually functioning. Blood, we look for disease process in there, but that organic acids really goes how that body's functioning. It looks at the Krebs cycle, how we're producing energy and everything else. I know, so some of your listeners might be like, what the heck is an organic acids test? Or if you see a functional doc, an oat test. No, we're not taking, oats and say, here, try this. How does this go? It's looking at really that function of the body in there to see what's going on. Get, testing to see what the digestive tract looks like what your hormones and neurotransmitters look like, and then really take that all into one piece, maybe a micronutrient test on top of it, and put it all together and go, you might feel healthy, or as the doctors say, we might say like, well, we're not seeing disease, so you're in a okay state, you're free of disease. Well, it doesn't mean you don't have things starting that could be a problem, and that's where it goes. So when we get to those more functional medicine testings, then we know really what your health looks like. And we know you don't have disease, but what does your health look like? We have to look at the health of us, not the disease state of us.
And I think that's a great point because I think in general with traditional medicine, it's kind of geared at triaging disease. And really, there's so much that we can do preventative so that we don't end up at the point where we're now triaging and kind of like trying to play catch up and
Mm-hmm.
try to fix things that we could have been fixing 10 more plus years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
prevention is such a big word. One actually, as you were saying that, it popped in my head. This always happens when I do talks, like all these words pop. I'm like, oh, we should say it this way. We should look at proactively creating health, not just preventing disease, because essentially, if you can do very little and prevent disease, but you're not promoting health. You're not creating that health in that process. So I think that's such a huge aspect to do is look at what we can do to promote health and not develop disease.
Now, you're also this expert in fat syndrome, and it's not like fat like obese, and it's not like fat like, hey, way cool, but so it is PHAT, but what does that stand for?
So yeah, the PHAT or fat syndrome there is polyhormonal adrenal testosterone syndrome. Fat is so much easier to say there, and it has a little fun, PHAT there, and what it is what we see in our men is very similar to what we see with PCOS with women. We see multiple hormonal imbalances going on. We see adrenal issues, which is our fight or flight response, our stress response being off kilter and not functioning properly. And then we see testosterone decreasing in these guys too. So it used to be, what happens all the time is it's like we see one provider for one thing. We see one provider for one thing, another. And so all, 5 or 6 different providers aren't looking at you as a whole. They're micro focused, laser focused on this one thing. And then you're, oh, that's fine, we fix it. But we step back and go, no, this is really a conglomerate of symptoms there and issues that are going on that have now created this syndrome in guys that we see, that I see all the time.
And what kind of things do you see in your male patients with this fat syndrome?
So they can be slightly overweight to moderately or severely overweight. We see the stress response. They're not responding to stress really well in the system. Typically emotional issues that go on with them too. They might, and guys, we don't have emotions, but it's more mood. We'll see more. They'll like, I'm a little more grumpier, or the wife or the kids like, man, that dude's just grumpy right now. In that process. And then we see, as we see things as we age, things don't quite do like they used to, things don't, work the way they used to in that process. And that often is what brings guys in is like, hey, doc, like, this isn't working. I'm not seeing the erections I used to have occur. They're not as full as and that's one of the main things guys go in for is like when they first notice, like, things aren't working, that's when they go in. By that time, it's like, man, there's so much damage done. We have to reverse so many things there. So if we can catch early, then we can correct all those issues and stepping back and looking at that guy, that guy as a whole and go, where are the pieces of the puzzle that we need to fix so we don't develop all these chronic health conditions from there?
One of the nice things is we're starting to hear and see a lot more of this for men because, you see the commercials all the time for like, do you have low T? And, take this supplement and you're going to be better. But it's a little bit more than just that. So where, like, I guess beyond testing, where do people then go to try to build their health?
Well, some medical providers do specialize in functional medicine and more preventative and proactive healthcare. But mostly a lot of times it's naturopaths and acupuncturists, chiropractors within their functional medicine providers, those that look at a person slightly differently. I've taught this medicine for a long time. I was a professor at University of Western States for 3 years and taught the hormones and neurotransmitter program there. It's interesting how people in medicine tend to think and people who are in alternative or complementary medicine think. We think so differently. It's such fascinating for me, just that thought process. And medicine always tends to try to funnel down, like, okay, funnel down, test, what do we get to? Till we get to this little pinpoint and then go, okay, here's the med that does that, or here's the surgery that feeds that. And then, okay, good, that was 6, we're done. Whereas it's functional medicine, naturopaths, chiropractors, acupuncturists, we turn that funnel upside down. And we start here with that symptomology a person has and then broaden out to what could be causing that issue there. So to kind of reverse that. So what I like to do is try to take both those ends and kind of meet in the middle and go, how do we fix this person? Is it, functional medicine based? Is it nutrition? Is it diet? Is it acupuncture? Is it adjusting? Is it genetic, turning on, turning off genes there? Is it IV therapy? What can we do? Or do we need a medicine for a while to get them on board and get them rolling, get them in a safe zone, and then work on the back end for it? So, where can they go? There's lots of places. Look for your local providers in the area. You can type in functional medicine, acupuncture, chiropractic, naturopathic, and then your zip code, and it should be able to, or your town even, and you should be able to pull somebody up.
I think too, it's so important that, especially in traditional medicine, you're right, we go for the symptom and you usually have a choice. It's usually medicine or surgery. Where there's so many other lifestyle factors. Like I always try to explain to people that your health is like a 3-legged stool with, being each leg being body, mind, and spirit. And like as practitioner or as a traditional doctor, I can take care of the body, but I can't address the mind and the spirit. And if I just take care of the body and those other two legs are not quite right, that stool's going to still fall over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very much so there. It's good to do, and realizing as a practitioner itself is we're not the be all do all. End all there is we need those ancillary practitioners that come in and go, hey, you may need some counseling here to help you get through this process. But if you're not, sorry, my phone was just buzzing all of a sudden. If you're not addressing the underlying functional issues that are happening, the counseling isn't going to work really well.
Yeah.
The in any process, as we work with the functional medicine provider, when we work with our clients, we always say like, hey, I'm going to do the best I can. You're going to do the work. Number one, I can't do all the work for you. But if you're on a medication, we try to get you off as best as possible. Sometimes we need just a little bit. And it's just the system has, for some reason, need this little medication a little bit. And that's okay. Some people get so worried, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on this small amount of medication my whole life. And it's like, so what? You're on, whoopie-doo. You're on a Tic Tac the rest of your life. That's okay. You've done the work to fix everything else. So it's not polypharmacy or polysupplement that it's like this and the next drug, the next thing in there to create that process.
And I think it's also interesting the connection between stress and our hormones, and that the chemical process is all connected, and that when we're constantly under stress, which a majority of us are, male and female, because of how modern life is, that we're sucking the hormones away from the sex hormones, like for men, for testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and that's what we see is when that stress response can no longer adapt the way it should. So it's more of some of the big terms out there, adrenal fatigue, adrenal insufficiency, they're not in the literature at all. So it's more of maladaptive stress syndrome. That one is in the literature itself there. Or chronic unpredictable stress. And I like to use the term kind of like Christmas. Christmas is fun and everything, but this one's Cussmas. It's more of a not so happy Christmas there. It's that chronic unpredictable stress that hits us every day. And that can be physical stressors, as in, we hurt myself or something else. It can be environmental, it can be chemical, it can be spiritual, it can be mental, all they're causing that. And that's unpredictable. It makes us become maladaptive to stress response from there on out.
Great. So, we're going to come back after a commercial break and we're going to talk some more about this fat syndrome.
80% of women will develop a pelvic health condition at some point in their lives. There is relief. There is hope. The Pelvic Floor Store, your resource for personal health.
And we're back here on the Body, Mind, Spirit show with Dr. Jerry Bailey. So Dr. Jerry, you were telling us again about this fat syndrome and how it affects the hormones in men. So
yeah, as we ended there, I was talking about Cussmas, the anti-Christmas, so to say, there, and that really that unpredictable stress in the body. Over time, stress is good. We want stress because it makes the body adapt, but too much stress from different factors causes that maladaptation of the stress response. In doing so, the body has to pull from somewhere. And there's a couple ways it can do that. There's some controversy within the functional medicine and physiology world of, is it this pregnenolone steal? Is it something else? To me, I'm like, let the scientists, let the researchers figure that out. Here's what I'm seeing clinically, and you guys can argue till you decide what you want to call it, and we'll call it then at that point anyways. So what we see then is the body goes like, I always call it this little, almost like the old speaker or the decibel meters on our stereos. Those of us old enough to remember those. Yes. The old decibel meters there is it's kind of like one side is rest, digest, and reproduce, and the other side is stress response. So we should be sitting over on that rest, digest, and reproduce. We get a stressor and we bounce back. We get a stressor and we bounce back. What happens over time or too much is we get that stressor and we don't bounce back as well. That stressor, we don't bounce back. And all of a sudden we're shifting over here. And then the hormones in the body's like, well, we need to rest, but we don't need to digest or reproduce. We need to get out of this stressful situation. So it shuts those down. That's where we see digestive issues come up. And we see the hormone shifting there too. For guys, we see lower testosterone levels. We see infertility occur in that process from there. We see erectile dysfunction occur within there. We see mental state start to decline in that process too. And women, the same thing. We see all that stuff start to shift over from there. And so that's how that process occurs. I just really describe it as that, that decibel meter on like your stereos was that process. It's like we should be pegged and hanging out and the rest I just reproduce, but instead we're over here in that stress response.
Of course, it's so important for people to go and see their practitioners who specialize in this to really find out what's going on, do the testing, and, officially get recommendations on what to do next. But is there things that that men can do on their own to help this or kind of prevent this from happening?
Yeah, there's really a base things that guys can do. And it's across the board, not just guys, it's gals and kids too, you hear it all the time. You got to eat right. It's not rocket science. If you eat high fat, high pro-inflammatory diet, if you eat, which is all the bad fats there, the deep fried, all the stuff that tastes good, unfortunately, if you eat that stuff all the time, you don't eat vegetables and fruits, you eat processed foods a ton, and you drink soda or Red Bull or any of the other big drinks like that consistently, you're going to see this pro-inflammatory state occur in the body, and you're setting yourself up and pushing it, basically getting behind that car going 100 miles an hour and pushing it even faster to create disease process in there. So it's eating a really good, balanced, healthy diet. I like to call it kind of the Paleo-Mediterranean style of eating. I like that style because it's really healthy. If it's a whole food, eat it. If it's a good vegetable, as long as it doesn't cause any problems for you, eat all the vegetables you want, eating the rainbow within that process, not Skittles, the rainbow of colors from vegetables there, eat the rainbow, 7 colors a day plus white, so 8 colors a day in vegetables and fruit. Then you can have a little sweet if you want to. Good meats that are anti-inflammatory, so grass-fed meats or wild-caught meats are really, really important for us there. And then, a little bit of good oil within there. The olive oil is really beneficial for you. Being careful with your pro-inflammatory oils. Coconut oil can be pro-inflammatory. If you have an APO3 or 4 genetic makeup in your system, which increases apoproteins in your system, I'm one of those guys. Coconut oil, even though it's generally good and considered good for most people, I'm not the ones it's good for. And those with the 3-4 combo, it's not good for us. It creates inflammation cardiovascular and increases cardiovascular damage and risks in our system there, including stroke and Alzheimer's and those Parkinson type diseases in our processes there. So that's kind of like the basis. Eat really good. A little bit of alcohol is okay, a little bit of wine here and there. More of the spirits is good. A beer is okay, just not 2 to 3 a day is not good for us in that process. A couple times a week, 1 or 2 is perfectly fine. Plenty of water is really, really, really key. We're like 80% water, depending on who you talk to and which science book you read. It's like we're 80% or 90% water. We're somewhere in there in that process. So plenty of good water for ourselves too. And exercise. Getting exercise every day. As simply as going for a walk for 30 minutes each day is perfectly fine. Good exercise, especially if you're starting from scratch. Get your bottom off the couch, get outside and walk and enjoy nature. The Shinrin Raku, I always pronounce it wrong, that could be totally wrong.
Oh, I love that, yes.
Is forest bathing, is getting out, they've done research on this, getting out and walking in nature. We actually absorb phytochemicals from the plants that are pushing off into the air around them, and that's beneficial for our system. It calms the stress response down. It wakens the brain up to get it to function properly. It releases more endorphins, dopamine, serotonin in there, and it increases our body awareness. So doing those simple things, just eating right and exercise. It's like you grind it into the ground and just like, you're like, how many times I got to hear this? Well, until you do it, really. You're going to hear a provider say, you got to eat right, you got to exercise. Those are the 2 bases. You don't take care of those, we're not going to out-supplement, we're not going to out-drug you in any way possible to make you healthy.
I think that's so important. And I know it comes up time and time again, but it's really like, I know even myself, sometimes it's just not that easy, but like that's you want the secrets to health. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. It's like, hey, here's the big thing, guys. Here's the secret. Look around, like, okay, make sure they're not listening to us. Guess what? You got to eat right. You got to exercise. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I always forget about too is sleep and the effect of sleep on our hormones too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sleep is an immense issue. We don't sleep enough. I use a Whoop. It's a little band there, a little sensor. I also use an iWatch. I'm a tech nerd, so I like to get data. So I use you can use an Oura Ring. There's lots of different ways to track your daily habits and your sleep there, to see how you're sleeping, how deep you're getting into sleep through there. So those are good ways to really train yourself to then really look at your heart rate variability. Your HRV. That's really important to look at, to see like the more variability you have in your heartbeat, which means here's the key to it. People make it fancy, like, oh my gosh, this HRV, it's really hard to calculate. No, the slower heart rate you have, the better heart rate variability you have. The faster heart rate, resting heart rate you have, the less variability you have, which means you're less adaptive. So exercising and eating right slows down your heart rate, increases the space between beats, which increases your body's ability to adapt.
I was wondering too, are there any specific like male conditions that you see like have really good advice on how to improve? I know that's a real general question.
that was, could you rephrase the question, please? So basically, Go ahead.
Yeah. So, what is the biggest concern that you see men coming into the practice with? What is the biggest complaint?
It's usually it's erectile dysfunction. Honestly, that's the biggest one guys come in with, is it's not working the way it used to. That's one of the biggest ones they come in with, because that's what they notice is just like, hey, things don't work down there like they used to. Or loss of sex drive in that same process. They notice like, I don't have an urge for it anymore. And they usually come in like, can I get one of the pills? And it's like, the pill can help, but this is a wake up call. Okay. Things aren't waking up. So that should be a wake up call for you to get in and get checked out through there. So that's kind of the biggest one to see there. And really it is getting a workup for that, looking at your testosterone level to see. It's notoriously, we're seeing, the research is showing, 60% of guys are in their 40s are now low T. And increases as we get older there. We're actually seeing low testosterone and erectile dysfunction in 20-year-olds.
Do you see any problems with like some of the environmental estrogens they talk about, like in the plastics and these like endocrine disruptors affecting men?
We're inundated with it. We are inundated with it with the foods. Heating up foods in plastic, i.e. microwave style, will do that. So if you're going to heat up in the microwave, put it on a plate, or in a glass Pyrex type scenario, do that through there. We see it in the foods, the exposures in plastics, exposures in canning there, exposures in water. I guess that's not doing it. This is a water cup. For some reason, it's a green screen. That's why you can see right through it. The Wonder Woman cup. It's the Wonder Woman. You can see right through it. Water, what we see particularly in city water supplies is those are designed to take out all the fun stuff, the poo and everything else, to make that water drinkable again. They're not designed to take out medications. And what we're seeing there is this medication increase in the water. And they've done the tests and showed when women take birth control that you are excreting estrogen through there, that's getting into the water supply and is getting taken out. So we're getting exposed in our water supply from estrogens there too.
Wow. Yeah, that's terrible too. So that's not affecting, that's not helping with, you're adding stress, and then you have all these environmental causes of lowering the testosterone. So, are there any natural ways that men can increase their testosterone?
Yeah, again, circling back to the basics, exercise. Exercise is huge. Hugely increases testosterone levels. When I do talks on men's health, one of the big ones I use is because, when you're sitting in front of the audience, they tend to kind of like do one of these sometimes. And so what I have them do is, I always, Maori, the Polynesian islands, the guys do the face paint, they do all that stuff. They've done research on that, and that increases. So I get the guys saying, everybody, let's get up in the room. We stand up and we start chanting and do the little Maori war dances, and to wake them, not only to wake them up, but we actually boost testosterone like 400% with that thing.
Wow.
So simply doing that, getting outside, screaming. I was like, I'm a musician also. I play drums. I'm like, let's rock and roll. Is boom, let's get that rock and roll going. Just screaming, just getting that out. All of us will boost testosterone up to 400% with that process. So those are simple things that way. Supplement wise, it's one of those things. We always get those questions like, what supplements can I take to help boost it? Again, we're not going to out supplement or out medicate something that's going on physiologically for you. So, boron, magnesium, simple multivitamins can help in that process. But again, what are we looking at of why you have low testosterone? Is it a brain issue? Is it a pituitary issue? Is it a testicular issue? Is it a receptor issue in the body? We have to look at all those things and not just go, oh, you have low T, here's testosterone.
Yeah. So do you see people that are like, because you do see the commercials all the time now with like everybody on the face of the earth has their own like the man boosting, product.
Yeah, they're on like crazy, all the testosterone boosters online.
Yeah. So can men cause more problems by taking something like that if they're not being tested and followed by a practitioner?
Yes, totally. And that's the thing is a lot of times those ones work a little bit. We'll see a little bit of boost in there, but then it just kind of fades. The body's like, it fades back. So it'll use those nutrients somewhere else, where it's more needed at that point. But yeah, you can cause some issues with there because again, for guys, how are we breaking down that testosterone? Are we converting it to estrogen, which is not good for us? We need a little bit, but not a lot through there. And that's why we do the additional testing, look at hormones, looking at like the Dutch test in particular. I like that one. There's other ones out there to look at that metabolism of the testosterone and breakdown of the estrogens there. Because then we can see like, if you're getting testosterone, are you breaking it to estrogen? And if we're doing that, that's not good for guys. We're going to increase, chest mass and breast mass in men too. Men get breast cancer. We've seen that. So if we're having those issues where we're seeing more estrogen in the system, more fat deposition in our pectoral area, that increases our risk for breast cancer there. So it's, knowing what you're doing and what your body does is really key to know where to put the pieces of the puzzle again. Is it the brain? Is it the pituitary? Is it the testicles themselves? Is it a receptor issue out there? Where is the dysfunction at? Not just let's drop this hormone in there.
So this is all great advice. And where can people find more information out about you?
Well, they can go to my website, lakesideholistic.com. That's my clinic there. My Guy Show one is in production still to get done, but you can go to lakesideholistic.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/lakesideholistic. You can also find us on Instagram at lakesideholistic, also through there. Those are really the big places to go. You can get on our mailing list to be able to get our emails that we go out to educate people. We're doing that more so now again, because email is king. We don't try to inundate you with stuff. It's like, if you're interested, click on it. Great, you'll get more information on it. But those are kind of the big areas. But if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, you're going to hit us. Also on Instagram, you can find me at Dr. Jerry Bailey on Instagram, and you'll hit there also to follow me more on the guy stuff than just my practice stuff itself too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us. And I just wanted to thank also our listeners and viewers. And if you really enjoyed today's content, make sure you go to wytv7.org and feel free to donate so you can help with continuing this great, wonderful programming that they have at this channel. Also, to find out more about me, you can follow me on social media. Just look up Dr. Betsy Greenleaf or Dr. B. Greenleaf. And you can also go to my website at drbetsygreenleaf.com. So thank you once again, Dr. Jerry Bailey, for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Mr. Happy Living here. I love good things made for good people. That's why I love Happy Living's online e-course. It's an 8-week-long deep dive into you and the inspired life you want to live. The life you were put here on this earth to live. The one that you and only you can live. 8 weeks of lectures and ideas and topics and supporting materials and powerful self-improvement tools. All designed for you. All designed to help you create the tools and the power and the confidence you need to discover your purpose and to discover the life you were meant to live and to feel incredibly inspired and motivated to decide you will live your life to its fullest. It's all designed to help you create the unique and distinct philosophy of you and your inspired life. Go to happyliving.com, select our e-course, and save $100 with promo code WYTV7. And for every enrollment, I'll donate another $100 to WITV7. For $300 and about 30 hours, I promise you'll never, ever be the same again.